is weirdo. Fuck, I forgot my water. Memory is poop. So I'm going to be trying to detangle a hank of yarn that got tangled up when I tried to wrap it and stuff, because I don't really know how to handle hanks of yarn, because I don't really use them, because I am cheap, and generally things that come in hanks, they're more expensive. So this is some of my hand-dyed yarn. I'm not going to pick it up because that will absolutely make it worse. But basically, like, when you unravel, when you uncurl a hank, um, it is in a circle. Somehow when I was twisting it up, I kind of like messed up something. I don't know. And there's just like a huge mess. So I can't even put it on my Swift and put it into a ball. I have to untangle it, and then I'm going to ball it up using my yarn winder, which is right over here. You can't see it, but it shakes my table. But this is going to take a while, and I already started, worked on it for like 20-30 minutes and have made very little progress. Untangling yarn is not my forte. But I figured I'd get on here, chit chat with you all. It's on my table right now that I film on, so I can't really crochet and stuff with I put my Swift on my doll. Her eyelashes are a little flattened, so we're just gonna put this over here. But the title is about something that kind of I don't know, got under my skin a little bit. Because we're dealing in what is supposed to be the age of information, right? Information should be so readily available to us, and while we are constantly bombarded with both opinions and facts that can be very difficult to distinguish those two, and especially depending on how a person delivers it, and if you trust that person, and if you have the same beliefs as that person. And so if you are in the Facebook group Army of Weirdos, you will have seen that I posted a reaction video to the documentary. I almost did like documentary because like I feel like documentaries should be filled with like facts, and this was like a clearly biased, expression, but like there's tons of biased documentaries, so I guess it's still a documentary. Um, but it kind of put me in this space where I was just like, for those of you who don't know, I have a background in math, and granted, I'm disabled and my brain don't work no more. So can't do the fancy math I used to do. I still like understand. I studied a lot of probability and statistics. My focus in school was applied mathematics for business. So I took a lot of statistics and probability classes, and I have personally seen, uh, and I'm sure everyone has seen, but maybe not everyone, you know, thinks the same way as I do. I don't know. Um, that statistics are so readily used improperly. Not all the information around those statistics is given. And so it's really easy to catastrophize and um, experience that some people have, and make it and extrapolate that to a broader to be a broader problem than it is, or a broader circumstance than it is. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I posted a video of Jamie Dodger, who is a fairly well-known YouTuber based out of the UK. He is trans, and he is queer, and he also has his PhD um, in, I believe, like gender studies, or something to that effect. So he did a lot of research and is really good at coming up with like actual statistics, looking at the basis behind finding those statistics, looking into like studies, all of these things. So um, I find him to be a fairly reliable source. And while not all of his content is explicitly related to things like this, he's very outspoken when it comes to trans issues, which I appreciate because, it feels good to have such a educated um, and well spoken person to be on your side, right? And so he did a analysis, like a critical analysis of PragerU's documentary called D-Trans. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the kind of terminology, detransitioning is a term that applies to people who transition and then uh, figure out that it's not the right path for them, and uh, and they revert to the gender that they were assigned to at birth. Um, Now, you will often hear people who are on a more conservative side of the spectrum, um, uh, specifically those against, transitioning and trans folks, um, uh, people who sensationalize the I don't know, the whole trans experience to be just this like big fun thing that we're making everyone want to do, which I don't think anyone who's watched my channel has been like, wow, he looks like he's had so much fun transitioning. Like, it's, for me, it has not been an easy process. For most people, it's not an easy process. So PragerU is um, while their name makes it seem like they are a institution of learning, they are in fact not. They are an organization focused on um, basically a bunch of anti-trans rhetoric, right? And so detransition follows the stories of two adults who have detransitioned, and the truth of the matter is that people who have detransitioned are absolutely real. It's a valid experience for people to have. And, I would venture to say that the majority of trans people understand that, um, you know, if that's your, if you're, you know, on the path to seeking your true gender identity, meaning that you thought you were trans and you now realize that maybe that's not the case. Um, you, you, you know, it doesn't invalidate the trans experience, um, and it doesn't make transitioning um, any less, you know, um, uh, real, right, and important and valid, right? So, they used stories of two people who were particularly expressive about how one easy it was for them to transition, and which I just like it 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 it, it like floors me, right? Because like I have not experienced that. I have not seen one trans person experience this like start to finish transition in like a month. Like that's just not what I've seen. But the data also shows that that's not really the average experience, right? So of people who do transition, um, uh, less than 1% of them will detransition. And of that 1%, 90% of those folks will actually end up retransitioning. Um, a huge part of a lot of people's detransition is not having um, social, uh, not comfort, but like support. There we go. And so once they can find people they're comfortable around and stuff like that, maybe they do retransition. Maybe they don't. It's totally up to a person to make that call for themselves and their bodies. So there's a lot of like information missing in this in what's presented as like um, uh, a fight against transitioning. And while transitioning might not have been appropriate for those two people, that doesn't mean that transitioning is not right for the 99% of other people. And so, you know, they these two people transitioned as adults, and it seems like the majority of the story behind it is that like this, the message behind the documentary is that children are being targeted to transition, which you know this is not an uncommon thing to do with social changes. Women and children are often the first people to be thrown as a shield against things. This was done with racism. This was done with the gay civil rights movement, and it's being done, with the bathroom bills and stuff like that. It's like, it's always about the safety of the women and the children. And so these one person describes their experience as, they were unhappy, they felt different, they then they saw people on the internet being happy as trans people, and they were like, well, maybe if I can transition, then I will be happy. That was one of the person's stories. The other person had what I would consider a far more horrifying and abusive situation happen, that led them to finally start transitioning, right? And so, but it's like, you don't get happy from transitioning. You get happy by getting to be yourself without feeling trapped in the wrong situation, right? And so that's why trans people on the internet who promote being transgender, and I used air quotes so significantly there, if you did not see, but this is what you know like this is what is being communicated. So I think it's important to say, is just that, like, it's they're not, transitioning doesn't make you happy if you're not trans. Like, that's the thing. Like, and transitioning, they always talk about the medical transition, um, specifically the uh, the surgery that is involved. Which, if you are trans, the 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 surgery is one of the. I mean, it's a significant deal when it happens, right? But, like, you're trans regardless of whether or not you have surgery if you're trans. So you don't need to have surgery or even want surgery to be trans. You don't need to want hormones to be trans. If you identify as trans, boom, you're trans. It's like really not that complicated. So it seemed like, maybe there was a lot of, um, you know, uh, either miscommunication, blatant, lying, or just poor medical practice, when it came to, some of these people's stories. And it's like, well, you're using, these kind of uh, far out examples as, like, what the average trans experience is like, and saying that trans people are, like, seeking out and, like, trying to recruit kids, to be trans. I can't even, like, can barely even say that because it's so beyond, like, silly and ridiculous to me, right? Um, because, like, I don't I don't want I would prefer no one be trans, because then they wouldn't have to live any part of their life being not what they are, like, that is a really tough experience. So, like, why would I wish that on people, I don't know if that makes sense or not. Maybe it doesn't, but, like, I would never wish, like, the discomfort of um dysphoria on people. However, like, if people experience gender euphoria, I would absolutely wish that on them. If that makes sense. um so yeah, so it is it really was uh interesting, um I'll say an interesting take on things, because, again, as uh, uh, strange and ironic to me that the trans community is being targeted for, spreading misinformation about the benefits of socially and or medically transitioning, when like, really, like, for trans folks, it's like our only goal is to just, like, be able to be happy. And, like, we, why would we wish someone else to be unhappy? Like, I don't I don't want everyone to be transgender. Like, and if people are transgender, like, I want them to be able to seek and have appropriate care options and things like that. So it just is really, like, it's really alarming, to see information like this. And also, like, like, when this documentary came out, Craig Hughes spent over $1 million on Twitter, to promote this thing. And it's like, so you're telling us that we're trying to brainwash people into being trans, but you're trying to brainwash people against being trans? Like, like, who exactly is doing the brainwashing here? Like, let's put that into perspective. But irony is lost on fools, and I have no problem with calling this organization fools. I'm not calling the people who detransition fools. They're allowed to do what they want with their body. Um, it does seem like some very poor medical care because the way that they described it, some people, one of the people described it as like they were like rushed through the process and were able to make these changes so easily and so quickly, and all they had to do was spend 30 minutes in the doctor's office, and boom, they got everything that they ever wanted and more. And like, you know, uh, in the US, that is not how things work, especially if you are going through insurance and you want insurance to pay for it. Like, if you wanted to change your body in any way cosmetically, and you paid for it out of pocket entirely, you would absolutely be able to do that. People do it all the time. People aren't in an uproar because like people get injections or facelifts or boob jobs. Um, but the people who want to finally get to experience that gendered euphoria and not um, feel or just to feel their optimal selves, they're somehow villainized and seen as like predators. And it's like worrying about changing anybody's mind is about whether or not being transgender is valid is probably the furthest thing from my mind. Like, I'm just trying to survive, be happy, deal with my own challenges in life. Um, and like honestly, there are points that made me like borderline physically ill, and I'm not being um, like hyperbolic or whatever the term is. Sorry, I can't think of words right now. I'm trying to detangle this and hint. Um, I'm not being like extreme. I'm saying like this was very hard, and then the other person that they featured, um, uh, had a very traumatic experience, and also there clearly wasn't um, a lot of uh, discourse between them and their medical provider about the difference between gender identity and gender expression. This person talks about growing up in a culture where like being a man means being very macho, being very like masculine, whatever, and like hyper masculine. And because they weren't that, they started to identify more with, hello, China. I'm talking about a bit of a heavier issue today. Not always my normal stuff, but I wanted to come on here and talk about the documentary that I watched. I just watched clips through a critical analysis of it, but about people to transition. Um, and I think that there are people who want to like if there's anyone who, if you're ever wondering like whose side someone's on, the minute that someone talks about a social contagion when it comes to trans, they're not on the side of anyone who is actually transgender. Like they talk about it like it's the flu, and one day we'll all get better and figure out that that's not what we're actually experiencing, because adults can't know their own bodies. And I do think kids can know their bodies to a level, but from my understanding, the way that they talk, people who are against position, and things. They talk about it like a kid could just go to the corner store and get on hormones, and that's that's not a reality, so I get very confused when because I'm like, where are the facts? Where is the data? And not only don't give me a statistic of uh, children identifying as trans has gone up X percent. Well, tell me, like, how much of it, what was the number before? Was it like 10 to 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 14, like those types of things. Give me the basis, give me how you did your study, give me the criteria, give me the information, because like I said, as someone with a background in statistics and mathematics, it's very important how you gather information and um uh how you uh distribute that information. And there are people who manipulate statistics, um, uh, by using them without context and without data supporting it to create to try to create a broader point. And the fact that that broader point is not supported by science, medicine, or data, like, you're spreading misinformation. So that's what this title is. It's like misinformation gets spread so easily. It's so easy for people to just say something. It's out on the internet, and how would someone who was just watching the content, consuming the content, how would they know that that was an opinion or a fact? And if they are presented with information and a statistic as a fact, well, how do they know the background behind anything? Give some sources, give some information. And I have a Facebook group, if anybody wants to join, called that's not already in there, called Army of Weirdos. I put for some reason I can't put the link in there because I'm like the group moderator or whatever. But if you just type in Army of Weirdos, it's the one with the green pillow that says fuck. Um, and you know, I um, I just and I posted about this the other day, which is why I'm bringing it up, because watching this video of the critical analysis of the documentary, and the person who is doing the critical analysis is trans, so like there is bias there, yes. However, this person has their PhD in the UK, and like I think like gender studies, like specifically focused around like being transgender and things like that. So like and like the prevalence of it and things like that. So when they speak, they provide studies. They link all their studies. Um, when a documentary, is talking about just how many people are detransitioning left and right, left and right. It's like, okay, well, where's the data to support that? And then when the data supports that, it just happens to not be included in the documentary. So, and like, while I do think that like, you know, there are, I can understand a lot of people's different opinions about, statistics like that, and the whole issue and protecting the kids and stuff like that. It's just, hello, I almost had dreams because my eyes are like even just staring at this yarn, trying to tangle it. I would show you it's some of my hand-dyed yarn, but when I twisted up the hank, I messed it up, and now I'm having to untangle it by hand because, like, I can't even get it on the Swift to put it on my ball winder. So I'm just trying to like make this work in any possible way. Um, so I'm multitasking, which you all should know that I'm not great at. But but if we, instead of taking information, and this is not the first place in history where we've seen people use statistics improperly to make their point, when if you looked at the studies that were done that gave the statistics, they actually would not influence that person's message, right? Like politicians do it all the time. Love throwing out statistics, very little evidence of what the hell they're talking about. So like, I always advocate for people researching things, finding things out for themselves. Like, I don't want anyone to come away from this video and be like, oh, well, that video had to be garbage, um, or that documentary had to be garbage because, they did stuff like, like, do research on yourself by yourself, and figure things out yourself. I think that we don't, it's great to hear other people's opinions, to bounce back and forth, to have dialogue and conversations. But when statistics and other information is misused to shape someone else's point of view, and then I put this on Nightbot because I've been very depressed and have been having a hard time, and I'm talking about a very serious topic. So Nightbot, a little, like, tone deaf, but okay, thank you. But I wrote that, so I can't blame Nightbot. That's on me. See, that's taking ownership. Um, but yeah, so it's just like, I don't want anyone to take what I say as fact when it is an opinion. I want people, and I love having dialogue with people. That's why I like actually kind of engaging with trolls, and I don't mind it, because sometimes people are willing to have a conversation. They bring an opinion, and you're like, okay, you have an opinion. I disagree with it. Let's have a conversation about it. And and more times than not, they're stuck in their ways. They don't want to change, and they leave. And that's a clear sign that they didn't want to bring any evidence or any educated opinions to the table. They just wanted to be a dick, you know? And but occasionally, I've had people be trolls or not in vibing what I'm vibing with, and, you know, they're like, "Thanks for hearing me out," like, it gives me something to think about. And that's really all I feel like I can do and I wanna do. You know? I could sit here and give you statistics, but that's not really what I want to do, if I'm being honest. So, and also, that video that Jamie Dodger did when he did his critical analysis was very informed. He cited sources, with actual statistics whenever a study was done, or a case was shown. He would look into exactly the the, the just the facts, right? And then was like, okay, well, this was misused, um, or maybe this is right, and this is grounds for medical malpractice or something like that. But there are, it's unfortunate that these people, I, I think to a level, both of the people featured in this documentary were, you know, kind of harmed by, um, the medical system. It does, with, there's also one of them, I don't know if there was a source for this, but apparently, so, find out this information for yourself. But uh, Jamie, who is Jamie Dodger, um, who has done research in this, so I willing to put, you know, money on the fact that this information's out there. So, you know, I just don't know where to find it, and I'm not gonna look for it because I'm busy untangling yarn in trans colors, nonetheless. That I hand dyed myself. It's my first batch of hand dyed yarn. It's not bad, but it's not consistent like dye batch to dye lot to dye lot, and so I need to practice on just being a little bit more consistent. I know that's the reason why you have different dye lots is because it's hard to be exact with hand dyeing, but but he said that uh, you know, a lot of people who detransitioned, it was found out that they had um, like lied to their medical providers, and uh, or you know, for some people, you know, they had lied to their medical providers, and a medical provider, you know, no matter how good they are not mind readers. But putting the idea out there that like you can't talk to a therapist and say, like, look, I've done the research, I've socially transitioned. Like, they make it sound like it's so easy. And I'm like, when and where? And oh, why them? You know, it's easy for me to actually get jealous of these people who had such easy treatment, but that doesn't mean it's easy detransitioning. And I do think that there should be support for people who, you know, just, you know, they thought that that was their situation, find out it's not. You know, I feel like um, you know, I just really, you know, I don't envy anyone in that position because that must be very turbulent, very difficult. Um, but, you know, if you say that, like, oh, thank you, Ross. He, him. Um, I am a trans man. Um, and, uh, so yeah, so, you know, it's like, well, there's a difference from wanting to feel like a boy in the person in particular that I'm thinking about from the documentary. That's the kind of thing that they said after they detransition. Yep, of course. If you want to enter your pronouns, I would be totally cool with that. Also, if you have a preferred name other than um, your little, I was gonna say screen name. What am I on AOL? Like AIM? Oh my god. Um, Okay, so if you want to be called something different than your name on YouTube, just let me know. Can't guarantee that I'll remember it because I do have a piss poor memory, and that it is not because I'm transgender. It's because my brain is broken. um, and yeah, so unrelated entirely to being trans. So um, So yeah, so but this one person was like they wanted to feel like a boy. She, her, drums is fine. Okay, great. Um, well, welcome, and I don't think I've seen you here before, but if I have, and this is not our first time meeting, my apologies. Like I said, you know, memory bad. Um, so, but this person wanted to feel like a boy, but didn't identify as a boy, and that's what they said afterwards. But you know, in the process of getting your letters of support and all of this stuff, if you said things like that, that would likely raise some questions with your medical provider, who would be like, "Well, what do you mean you want to feel like a boy?" Also, like for me, it was like all the questions were like, "Well, how long have you?" Um, how long have you felt this way, and making sure that I didn't just decide it the day before. And then it was like, have you socially transitioned? Has, do you know does everyone know you as Ian? Does everyone use he him pronouns? Which I think is honestly kind of a hard position to put some people in, because some people are not in a position where they are safe to transition socially around certain people. So they might they might not be known by their preferred pronouns or name, um, if you know if they're not in a position where they feel safe. Um, and so, but like it's like I had to socially transition uh, before I could even um, uh, you know and I still have to answer those questions even though I've been on hormones for like 3.5 years, I think. Hi, Heimlich Munchausen. I'm sorry. I saw your name earlier when you posted the comment, and I was like, this person's gonna come up, and I'm gonna try to say their name, even though like these are prominent names that I should know how to say, and I'm gonna make a fool of myself, and boom. um, but yeah, so, it was like, have you socially transitioned? All this stuff. Does everybody know you as this? I still have to answer all those questions all the time, anytime any medical talk is happening to verify that I'm still trans. And so I'm like, what is happening over there to, to these people? And what is happening here? And the thing is, like, I know that, like, I know that they're popular names, and I can say them in my head, but my mouth doesn't always communicate with my brain. Again, not related to me being trans, just being an idiot. Um, roll up these sleeves. I actually hate rolling up sleeves. I usually just bunch them up, but then my wife will usually come over to me and roll up my sleeves for me like I am a third grader, because I look at this. I'm just it's not natural for me. I've always just been a pusher. um, but I'm not, so don't judge me by my ability to roll with you, okay? I know it's something so easy that a kindergartner could probably do it, but it's just not my nature, okay? And I don't really care if it looks good, so I spend very little time on it. But for some reason I'm sweating. Um, but yeah, so I just like, I wanted to come on here and kind of share my side of the story. And like, it's like, not only do uh, not only do I have to get the standard letters that most people have to get, so just to back up a little bit, so to get any surgery, um, for insurance purposes, you need letters of support. And usually this will be done by um, usually it'll be two doctors. Or it'll be a therapist who isn't necessarily a doctor, but most of them aren't. And then the doctor that prescribes your hormones, which also puts people in a place where they have to be on hormones, which like the whole like surgery, medical transition, hormone package. Like, it's not a bundled thing. People get what they want. Not everyone wants every step. And so it also puts people who chose not to go the hormone route but want to physically alter their body in a harder position. So it's like, okay, well, there's all these steps. And for me, I also had to be on hormones for, I believe, a year before a plastic surgeon would even see me. And then I had to go to an endocrinologist, um, because like my primary care couldn't prescribe my hormones. And if you're in the US and you know anything about any kind of specialist, you know it takes a while to get there. So you're sitting there with the same feelings that whole time. It gives you plenty of time to think, is this the right move for me? But sometimes time and just experience change that for people. And again, none of what I'm saying is meant to invalidate the experience of people who detransition. I think that it's fine. You know, if that's your journey, that's your journey. Who am I to say that that's wrong? But the use of it on people who are transphobic, use of it by people who are transphobic, um, is there are probably more people that use it in a transphobic manner than people who actually detransition. Like that's how prevalent it is. And I remember, I don't get trolls too often because, like I said, I tend to try to befriend them, or I troll them right back. I do not care. Um, and but one day I got like a ton of trolls all at once, and like a lot of them were saying like, stuff about how much I was gonna regret, not being able to feed my babies, which like that's not my journey. Again, Nightbot is really great about chiming in, even though I wrote that. But I felt such a strong need to talk about this because, like while people who do detransition exist, their existence is valid, and I fully support anyone trying to find their happiness. Um, Blaming it on trans people for these people transitioning in the first place when it wasn't the right move for them is not the leap that I would have taken as someone who, on occasion, will have more than two brain cells. So, but yeah, so people came in and they were talking about it, but it was like people were so concerned about what I was doing with my body, and I'm an adult. I'm a freaking adult. I I'm allowed to do whatever I want with my body. It's called body autonomy, and you know, uh, I'm allowed to have it. So, that was kind of my response. And some people kept on fighting it. Some people were, wow, this someone I remember so distinctly, and I'm going to use a slur, what is considered a slur right now, but someone was like, this tranny is low-key winning. And I was like, one, tranny is considered a derogatory term, so please don't use that on my channel. And then I was like, and I'm not low-key winning, I'm fucking high-key winning. Like, these people are like wasting their time. I was gonna be on the internet anyways. They're not wasting my time, you know. And I love correcting people who I view as stupid. I didn't say I was a good person, okay? But anyways, so but yeah, so just to use these stories of these two individuals, um, who said that social media pressured them into, because they were, well, specifically the one person said that they were unhappy, and and figured it would just be like they felt different, so they must be a boy because of they saw transgender people who transition from female to male and were happy, and they're like, well, I want to be happy, I should do that. And it's like, well, that's not likely the message that they received, or that they were given. It's just maybe how they received the information. Um, it did, it did, as someone who has a lot of mental health issues, it did seem like there was a pretty strong case for, maybe some depression or something there, because they were, and they also like, you know, I don't know, if you want to watch it, go to Jamie Dodgers, uh, I'll just type in Jam. So this is his YouTube name, and uh, he is awesome. He brings a lot of data to the table, um, and knows probably more than most about actual statistics, citing them, understanding studies, because he has his PhD in like gender studies, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And he had to write, you know, papers with sources, and the thing about TikTok and any social media, any type of media, really, including documentaries and movies, um, they don't have to cite their sources. They don't have to prove shit. It's kind of like when people are like based on a true story, but then like half the shit didn't happen. They just used it to fill in space for the rest of the movie. Um, like that's kind of how I see it. It's like, well, we kind of like we took some liberties, and maybe the liberties that they took are trying to take liberties from other people. Sorry, that turned out to be a really bad pun, but if you've been here for more than 2 seconds, you know that who I am. Um, Bad puns and dad jokes are kind of my bread and butter. Also, dirty jokes, really, really foul dirty jokes. I also cuss like a sailor. Um, so if that offends your ears, no judgment, but I'm not changing that. Um, and that's cool. I'll never get monetized, but I'm tired. For the beginning of my YouTube career, I tried to work within community guidelines, get monetized, blah blah blah, all that whatever. And then I had a really bad depressive episode, and was gone from YouTube for about a year and a half, um, and kind of lost a lot of the momentum that I had going. Um, and coming back, I was like, you know what? I'm not censoring myself. I'm not putting on like an act, seeming like I'm okay when I'm not. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna stop myself from talking about mental health when it's important and could potentially help someone else. It definitely helps me to be able to kind of air some of the things that I deal with, especially because it gives me hope that you know maybe someone out there who's dealing with the same thing as me can see that and find hope in it as well. That's the greatest gift I could ever give to anyone. Right? So just kind of the way I view it. But yeah, so I just, and again, Nightbot's gonna scold me for keeping it, not keeping it uh, light and keeping it cute. I mean, I still think I keep it cute, but unpopular opinion. um, but I don't normally talk about politics, and I don't believe that I am going to get really far into um, talking about politics. And again, if I talk about politics, it's going to be from I'm trying to spread facts. I might share how hello Stephanie, hello Stephanie, welcome in. Um, so, if I talk about politics, I might talk about how certain bills will directly affect me. and that you can make up your own decision. You are the one who's going into that voter booth, uh, and you are the one making your decisions. So I'm not trying to change that. I'm just trying to provide a perspective that maybe you didn't consider before, or maybe you did and you wanted to know kind of firsthand how someone in that position felt like. Um, but either way, I'm not in the business of trying to change anyone's mind. I'm in the business of unraveling yarn and talking about my experience with things. And if that changes anyone's mind, then on that's that's them. That's not me. Um, and if we can have discussions, and even if we disagree, that's fine. I think that's awesome. I think we should be able to have discussions, right? That's what I think the true principle of free speech is, to be able to talk about um, anything, to be able to have discussions about anything without fear of persecution. Now, that does end at hate speech, obviously. Not it ends at hate speech, violent speech. Um, I hope I'm pulling the right end. If I undo all this work, you don't see an angry person. I've been at this for an hour, maybe done like 10 yards. Oh, this sucks. This sucks a lot. I don't even think maybe 10 yards. I have not done that much. It's so embarrassing. It's such a bad tangle. Like half of it is still in a ring where like it looks like a normal hink should, and then half of it is just like balled up in the center. And I'm like, why? Why me? But yeah, so I wanted to get on here and you know, we are like I said earlier, we are bombarded with a lot of both facts. This is the barf. I am already in the barf. Um, I am untangling. I'm untangling the barf. Is it barf if it was never in a skin or a cake to begin with? I'm not sure. I'm not super familiar with the terminology surrounding hanks. If you're an expert, please let me know, because this is more like this is like my yarn shit itself. So yeah, but you know, as we move through this journey, not just this year, but forever that I'm uh no, this is so I don't think you were here, Stephanie. So yeah, I I hand dyed some yarn. I put it into hanks. I dyed them. Um and when I was finally done with the dyeing and drying process, it's cotton. Um, so, um, because I was tired of not being able to find pride colorways in other than like rainbows, which even the rainbow options that I've been able to find, I'm not like super in love with. I want kind of like a true rainbow. I don't want some um, weird version of a rainbow. Anyways, and I want all the colors. If you're gonna sell me a rainbow, give me all the colors. Um, but or at least the six colors that we standardly use in the U.S. I know other countries use different colors, different numbers, but but yeah, um, but I always want us to be able to talk about things. If you don't agree with me, you are allowed to say that. It's fine. Share your opinion. But let's be open for a conversation, because the only way we can grow as humans, begin to understand other people's perspective, like we're not all the same. We all have had different life experiences. We've grown up with different biases against us, or maybe we haven't grown up with any known biases against us. Can't relate, but that might be someone's story. Um, like but there's no possible way that we can know every other person's experience unless we talk about it. So, I always encourage us to talk about it. Um, and I've always been this way before I transitioned when I, um, identified as a woman, with queer, just an LGBTQ rights in general. But I didn't, know any trans people. The thing about what I find so interesting about the argument that um, other people transitioning is making um, is making like young people or just anybody decide to transition. And I didn't say it looked good. I didn't say it looked good. And the two batches that I did look pretty different. So I still need to work on quality control there, but I'll show you what I got. So I have to move my cauldron. Think about how many times I've heard someone say that today. So I dyed 4 skeins, 4 ink. Um, and um, so let's see. This is, I believe this is the, shit. The one that's tangled and this one were in the first batch. These are the trans pride colors. Um, for some reason, when because I just used tie dye because that's what was suggested to me, especially starting out, or if I was just dyeing for myself, because I wanted to make like pride clothing because I was going to do a booth at Pride, and I was like, but there's like not really any natural fibers in like pride colorways, like variegations, and I didn't want to tie a bunch of knots and stuff. So I was like, let me dye my own cotton. So this was the first one, and this is like one of my many flags. And I forgot the colors of it, and I started putting pink on the outside, which pink is not on the outside. It's it's blue, pink, white, pink, blue. And so I was like, good job, brain. And then this one has more pink, as you can see, but it also has more variation in the blue. Um, it was not as hard as I thought it would be to keep white in it. I did have to get uh, just like cotton from the store. I couldn't get like undyed cotton from a yarn dyeing company um, because uh, because none of them come in white, which that is very confusing to me, especially because my fiber that I'm using is cotton. Cotton is white by nature, right? That seems confusing, but I needed white for not just the trans pride flag, but for other pride flags. Um, so I was like, okay, well, we'll just get some sugar and cream cones. Well, I got a cone, and so I got four 100-gram Hanks uh, out of one cone, and I did weigh them before I uh, put them in Hank form. So I do know approximate yardage and definitely uh, weight. So yeah, I would not say I'm talented, but I do like to try crafts, even if I'm not good at them. So it's like, worst comes to worst, I make a yarn I can use. best case scenario, I make yarn that I can sell because maybe there's other people out there who want to make wearables in a pride variegation of yarn. And I was also looking because, like, the thing is, like, the twist knitting yarn that has been very popular among the community and other folks who just like pretty colors. Um, they did. Uh, I do like Hirschner's a lot. My memory's bad too. Um, yeah, Hirschner's does have their own brand of yarn. I don't think they have any undyed yarn, to my knowledge. Um, but um, but I did wash this yarn before I used it. So like once I had it all in hanks, I washed it all with a little bit of dish soap, and then also um, put some white vinegar in it just in case um, there were any like remaining films or anything. I saw a video that this worked, so I did that. But like it's supposed to help if there was any remaining stuff on the yarn, or if it's sitting out on like the floor for a while, like you could make sure your yarn was clean, get better results. Oh, I felt so hopeful because I kind of went around like half the existing circle, and then boom. Um, and then Hirschner's also carries other brands of yarn. Hirschner's is a great, and I don't know if it's underrated because I feel like people talk about other places a lot more, but people still talk about Hirschner's quite a bit. But I love Hirschner's. It's one of my favorite places because like it's one of my favorite stores to shop at online because like generally like the sales that they have are so good. Um, so if you can catch a good sale on Hirschner's, I mean, it can be significant. So let's see. Let me get out of this situation. Where are you coming from? Oh, I was talking about what I um, what I had to do for to get surgery. So for surgery, because I also have mental illnesses, they um, they uh, they required to get a sign off from my psychiatrist, which um, didn't feel totally like I feel like this is one of the surgeries, this set of surgeries, gender affirming surgeries, are treated so vastly different than most other surgeries. And um, like you know, and not just as like a cosmetic thing, because a lot of cosmetic things are not covered by insurance. But even from like non-emergency surgeries, like those are still covered um, if if someone has a problem with them. Um, but I guess it's just different. I don't know. But it's just like the way that some people make these things sound is just like, oh my gosh, it's so easy. Anybody could do it. You could be like 3 years old and transition. Like that's that's not what's happening. You know. So so yeah. So I felt just so um I just felt so strongly about that documentary that I kind of needed to talk about it in a little bit more detail than something I could type out without my fingers falling off from, you know, ranting for so long. So I appreciate you all listening. I appreciate you all having an open mind, and always um, willing to talk to me about your opinions, and we can talk about things. And that's how we grow as humans. Because like I said, like, I mean, what's the point of being in the human race if you can't learn empathy and just and not only um, want to know what other people have experienced, but then having compassion for what other people have experienced. Like some of these like trolls will try to tell me how I feel, and I'm like, you don't fucking know what's going on in my brain. I barely do, but like, I don't tell them that because like, because like they also are still under like the antiquated impression that for some people that it's a mental illness to be transgender, and the American Board of Psychology or Psychiatry, sorry, it disagrees, and they're the professionals. So, also being gay used to be considered a mental illness, but no one thinks that anymore, except for the odd homophobe. So, like, it's like I'm just like, you know, like, uh, you know, I don't do this often anymore because my wife constantly reminds me about how miserable I am when I do get into arguments. But I did get into a little bit of a spat on Facebook because I was in a bad mood. I was depressed, and I was like, I'm tired of these fucking transphobes. So I did get into like a little spat on Facebook, just on like a random post. And like the thing was, so a trans woman came into a hair salon and had a receding hairline naturally. And yes, so the documentary is called D-Trans, and it was produced by PragerU, which sounds like a university and a place of learning, right? But it's actually not. It's just a fucking misnomer. Like, it's fucking insidious how they plan their assault on things. But no, it's just a foundation that is trying to just uh, stop the trans agenda. So, if you are in my Facebook group, Army of Weirdos, I put a little information on it in the description box if you want to check it out if you're on Facebook. Um, but I posted a critical review of it by a trans man who has his PhD in, I believe, in gender studies, and and he actually like posts or he actually shit, which end was I working on? Oh, oh my gosh, my brain. Okay, so these are the two ends. We're back. Okay, so so he actually brings sources, which of course the documentary does not. It uses statistics in a very intentional way to spread misinformation. Um, and yeah, and no, they are not over, Stephanie. I'm sorry to tell you that, but they are not over. And uh, what's worse is that with the anonymity of the internet, more people than ever, I think, believe that they can share their opinions, not provide any cited resources, and hide behind their computer. Because like I live in the South, and uh, I have plenty of people I've encountered in my life. Just this is an example. This is not an equivalent, but plenty of people in my life that are racist, or not in my life currently, but racist or homophobic or something like that. But it was always like they were always it was generally undertones. You know, the odd person would be very vocal about it, but it was always like undertones of that, you know. And now it's like the subtlety is gone. We are fully going to tell how we feel about things, and so, but I got to this argument with this transphobe, because like literally all it was like, so the video was a clip, like one of those like short clips from a hair salon showing a trans woman who experienced receding hairline, um, uh, getting a weave put in, like like a weave installed, and and the end result was beautiful. So I just typed in like, you know, uh, this is, great result. And I was like, and I, to the salon, I said, thank you for, helping people like live their authentic lives. And of course, like tons of people started commenting on literally just that one thing that I said. And they were attacking literally everyone in the comments who said anything nice at all. And um, when I said something about being on the wrong side of history, this person compared me to Hitler. And I was like, I'm trying, I was like, I'm being nice to people. I'm trying to encourage people feeling good about themselves. How is that, um, how is that comparable at all? Like, because Hitler said that the people that didn't agree with him would be on the wrong side of history. And I was like, this is fucking apples and fucking sports cars. Like it's not even they're not even both fruit. Like they're just fucking that's just a stupid thing to say. And then I said like, exactly what I just said now. And then I was like, I'm thinking more of like the civil rights movement and like uh like the women's rights movement and the gay rights movement and stuff like that. Like all those people ended up on the wrong side of history that were against it, like social causes and stuff like that. And he's like, well, it's interesting that you mentioned women's rights because you're trying to uh, um, take them away from people. And I'm like, fucking how? Being more inclusive to women is somehow exclusionary and takes away rights from women, you dumb. Like, I can't fake stupid. I can't fake stupid. Yeah. Um, from certain people from there, been, yeah. It's interesting that you say that. So I was recently in Boston, and in last September. I guess it's not that recent. It's recent. Um, and growing up in the South, like I said, like generally it was just always undertones, overtones, undertones, but they were everywhere pretty much with a certain generation, right? And then sometimes they got passed down through generations, whatnot. But anywho, um, so but when I went to Boston, being up, much more north than North Carolina is. Um, and you know, you know, I always figured that we are kind of told as kids how liberal and accepting the North is. Um, like relative to the South, which I think probably generally holds true. I think there's some like general um, uh, factuality to that statement. However, so we were out on a smoke break, and the majority of the people in the residential treatment center I was in for mental health were white, with the exception of one person who was indigenous. Um, so, um, so, uh, well, at the time, I think I think the only black person there had just left, and he was BC white, but not because he was black, but just because he was. I can't mention things because they are far too triggering. But but so I went to I went there, and the majority of the techs were black or minority, and so there was one tech in particular, and he just always had a lot of energy. But because the techs at this facility weren't really trained well, I don't think it was his fault because I think if it was trained, like it would have been different. But like because he wasn't really trained, um, he just like he would be very sweet and care. Like for me, like the once he got to know me a little bit better, like one day he like knocked on my room and he was like, "Hey, do you mind if I like ask you like a question?" And like he's like, "If you don't want to answer it, it's cool, whatever." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And he was like, "What? Can you tell me what it like? What your experience is like being trans?" And then he was like, "I have a nephew who's gay, and I don't know how to do that." And I thought that was really awesome of him. But you know, sometimes he was like, you know, he put his arm around people, which like if, you know, in mental health facilities, that's really not protocol, especially like in any health facility, that's not really protocol. But like touching people like when they don't want to in a mental health facility is like a big like read the room, read the room. Everyone here has trauma. Just you know, but but he was a nice guy. He just was, you know, too much, and he was constantly, you know, kind of, you know, acting a fool and stuff. But it was his personality, right? And but he still was a nice guy. And so we're out there, and there's probably like 8 of us, and I'm talking to someone, but my ADHD boop, 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 ears, which are always listening for any other noise except for the one I'm supposed to be focusing on, hears one of the girls, she's from Boston, say, "I'm really struggling not to say something racist right now." And I just like looked at her and I was like, "What the fuck?" like, like honestly, um, and you know, I told that I was friends, really close friends, still really close friends with the native guy, um, and he had like a crush on the girl who said that, and I was like, dude, like I gotta tell somebody this, and like I don't even know if I knew that they were like, you know, crushed on each other or whatever at that point, but I was like I fucking got out of the South, and I'm expecting to never hear people talk like that. This bitch just fucking said that. Consider me fucking gobsmacked. And also consider me a pacifist because I didn't try to throw hands. Because no, we don't do that. We don't do that. Um, so yeah, so that's what. So I talked to him and I was like, I got out of the South. You know, we're told, you know, all growing up all our lives that like, um, that and it's not that diversity isn't everywhere here. It's just that people are still shitty. And like, so uh So, I told my friend, I was like, you get out of the South, you think that you're given this promised land of acceptance and people just being fucking cool with people existing, and like it's at like I don't want to diminish um sexuality or gender identity, because obviously those are things I'm very passionate about and advocate for people being who they are. But like, nobody chooses their skin color unless you're Rachel Dolezal. So, or the few people who are like saying they're transracial, which is just no. But anyways, sorry, I won't get down that rabbit hole. But like, to be biased against something that someone cannot change, like if I wanted to, if I had to, is a better way to put it, I could have kept my true gender identity under wraps, lived a life that didn't make me feel fully fulfilled. I could have kept my sexuality under wraps, live a life that I wasn't fully fulfilled, but I can't change how I popped out. You get what I'm saying? So it's like it's a whole nother level of fucked up, I think. So I don't think they're on the same playing field personally, but I just, to be promised this land of acceptance and people being fucking cool, and then to see that, I was like, you're just lucky I'm medicated, frankly. You are very lucky. That's a nice topic to talk about, right? All the isms. Just don't be a dick. Like, have some compassion. Try to put yourself in someone else's shoes. It's not that hard. Yeah. And I, you know, I love to bitch and moan. You know, you all know that. I'm sure you've gathered that from the time you've been here. This is your first time here, even. But, um, but I don't understand people who derive joy from making other people miserable. That's what I really don't get. I'm like, how is this making your life better? And like, the thing is, like, those people really, it's not about making their life better. It's about making it better by, like, it's kind of like if someone's drowning and you push them down to get yourself up above water a little bit. It's not that you were actually doing well because you were drowning, but you saw someone else who was drowning for a different reason, and you just decided to shove them under. Even if they could swim and they were doing great, you just wanted to shove them under. I think that's probably the best metaphor I can come up with. I love a good metaphor, but I'm not always good at coming up with them on the spot. But yeah, I don't derive joy from making other people miserable unless they're bad people, and then I derive great joy from it. So, um, but if I see someone's happy, they're not hurting themselves or anyone else, I'm not gonna stop that. Um, you know, I don't believe that's a good person kind of move. Agree or disagree? It's up to you. This sucks. Ah, this yarn's pissing me off. I was hoping to make more progress in this. Not even halfway through the 100 yard, not 100 yards. It's 100 grams. Okay, so probably gonna let you all go because I can't stand to look at this anymore. And honestly, even I get tired of listening to my own voice. A nonverbal level 3 autistic 5-year-old, I just watched a person for after say there's no such thing as functional level. Wrote it in a comment and deleted it. Yeah, sometimes you just need to write it out and you can delete it and that's fine. You know, I think that like, you know, um, it's just like, you know, having empathy is very challenging for a lot of people. For some people, it's just not their natural state of being, but that doesn't mean they're not capable of it. Now, I do think that people with certain mental disorders, um, I think that empathy becomes, or like seeing the big picture does become even harder. And I say that as someone who's mentally ill, knowing that I cannot see my own big picture sometimes, which is why I need a good support system to be able to help me make informed decisions about my health. Um, and that's just kind of the reality of the situation, right? So I do think that that's just like, you know, you know, I'm very happy that your grandson has such a wonderful and supporting grandparent like you. And I think that's what we really need to focus on. We really need to focus on the support, the understanding, and the compassion for people who are dealing with different situations than us. And not everyone's capable or wants to do that. Nightbot, you really like there's other things that I put in Nightbot, but the only thing it's like, don't talk about serious topics. It's like literally that's all we're talking about. I put that there. Nightbot didn't just generate that by itself. I literally put that there. And now I'm like in like a very serious topic. We've touched on some serious shit today. But yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. Uh so Yeah, and I think that I think as we're starting to get more of an understanding of autism, I think that we're starting to understand that that these folks do generally do have I mean there's various levels of functioning, right? I'm ADHD. You don't have to worry about that. And I have CPTSD too, so you get full understanding from me there. But I think that we're starting to see that the while some people are nonverbal, um, for some part, if not all of their lives, that doesn't make their lives any less worthy of living, any less enriching for that person. They're always taking in information, just how they process information, which might be different than another person processing information, even with the same diagnosis. So, it's great that you are so supportive of your grandson, and I'm very happy that he has you. Um, I think that's really important. I think for anything in this world that makes us different than what society wants us to see is the norm. Because I don't think there is a norm, if we're being frank. And statistically speaking, you can't average like skin colors. Like you might say this is the most prevalent skin color in this nation or in this state or in this country or in this world, but yeah, that's so highly subjective. Like it's qualitative, right? It's not quantitative, so you can't put a number on it. Um, uh, well, I guess sorry, I went back to aesthetic school where like there's I forgot what they're called, but there's like 6 skin types and like they range in skin tone, but it's also talking about how they burn or if they tan, or stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I think autism is probably severely underdiagnosed, um, because, I think that newer research has found that it presents different in biological men and biological women. So I believe that there's been kind of a big um, change in attitudes towards diagnoses. It's a lot of diagnoses are set by a certain group of people, and so anyone outside of that group of people might not present that condition the same way. And I think that um, we need to you know continue doing research. We can never think that we've got it all figured out because we just don't. We don't. That's not that's not where we're at. Um, and you know, if we ever think we've got it all figured out, well, you know, I feel like I don't even know what that world would look like. I can't even imagine that. Um, but yeah, I think that you know, uh, you know, if someone has okay, thank you, China. I appreciate that. Well, I'm about to go anyways, but I really appreciate everyone hanging around. I know this is a serious topic. I know it's um, yeah, and like that's the thing, and pretty. I think what what autism spectrum disorder has really done wonders for um, both health and sexuality and gender is helping people realize that kind of everything exists on a spectrum, and it's black and white thinking. There's only a man and a woman, and only a man and a woman can be together. And, if you're born one way, you have to stay that way forever. You know, all of those things, I, you know, you know, for me, one of the first concepts of things existing on the spectrum was autism. So I think it has done a great service to our society, letting us know that things can exist on the spectrum, and someone can be low functioning or high functioning, or you know, uh, whatever the case may be for those specific things that I mentioned. But again, I'm getting tired of hearing my own voice. I'm probably not going to talk for the rest of the evening. My wife is out of town, meaning that I'll just have my pets to talk to, and they don't listen anyways half the time. So my dog listens. My cat is a cat, so he just lays on my arm when I try to brush it. But if you want to continue this conversation or any conversation with me, you're always welcome um, to uh, to join the Facebook group if you are on Facebook. If you find me or this community that we've built together interesting, I post a lot of patterns, crochet hacks, yarn hacks, stupid shit that makes me laugh. I encourage other people to do the same. And we just have a nice little network where we help each other out. And, we are also very emotionally supportive. If someone's going through a hard time in the group, everyone's there for them. And that's why we're a family. So if you want to join, feel free. If you don't, that's cool too. Or you can't, that's cool too. Um, so, hopefully I'll see you around. I can't promise when I'll be back on alive, but yeah. So, I hope you all have a great night or morning, whatever, wherever you are, and I'll talk to you later.